Plaza Premium Automobile Studios, powering your drive with 10 brands and 20 locations. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Kathy Barnette on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. You can't stop me!
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Barnette. You are listening to the number one talk radio station in Philadelphia. We cross over most of the mid-Atlantic. So we're talking most of the mid-Atlantic states, that is. So we're talking about Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Hey, how are you all doing? And right now, I wanted to bring in a new friend that I have had the opportunity to meet, Rabbi Mark Fishman. He is actually calling in from Israel right now. And you are the campaign manager for Israel365 Action. That's a very new organization on the lips of most Americans here. So let's just start off real quickly. What is Israel365 Action and what are you guys doing?
Well, first of all, Kathy, thank you so much for having me on the show today. It's a pleasure to be joining you, and it's a real honor. Israel 365 Action is a new party that was created by the organization Israel 365. Israel 365 is a conservative, pro-Zionist think tank that promotes Israel and supports the Jewish people in our biblical homeland. This organization, which it created, is a political party running in the World Zionist Congress.
Now, what is the World Zionist Congress? Because that too is not a word that we hear often here in America.
Well, you will be surprised to hear that even the Jewish people are not so familiar with the World Zionist Congress. This was an organization set up in 1897 by Theodor Herzl. This was the person that people call the modern father of Zionism, and he created this organization to launch the State of Israel. In many ways, it should have collapsed and been incorporated into the modern state in 1948 when Ben Gurion declared statehood. But it continued, it survived, and today, almost 125 years later, the organization is still up and running. It's an umbrella organization for some of the major statewide institutions in Israel. It controls a large budget. And
it's about $1 billion, right?
Correct. Every year, $1 billion of funding is pumped into all of these different organizations that it is the umbrella organization for. And what takes place is a vote from Jewish people all over the world. And they make up, we call it the Jewish People's Parliament. They make up delegates, and they then put forward motions which are voted upon, and that decides the flavor and the direction that the state of Israel moves in.
Yeah, and most Americans here, we understand campaign financing, and we understand that $1 billion is a lot of money, and you can really push your agenda and get your people elected to the Knesset and other places where people then turn around and make decisions. And explain a little bit about the makeup of the World Zionist Congress. So again, it's this organization. It's not an actual legislative body,
correct.
right? But they are an organization that has a very large budget of about $1 billion, and they are very influential. And the makeup of this organization tends to lean very left. Right?
That is correct. So as you noted right at the beginning, it does not have legislative powers. So it is not the Knesset, Israel's democratic parliament. It cannot decide law. However, what it can decide is cultural issues surrounding Zionism, and issues surrounding the flavor that the Jewish people want to express their Jewish character. So that is the first aspect of what this body is. And for decades now, it has been in the hands of the left. And over a period of time, as the left has become deeper and deeper entrenched into more and more liberal values, we've seen that the expression of these very liberal, left wing, woke even values have also started to seep into the World Zionist Congress in terms of some of their motions, some of their positions, and some of the approaches that they are taking with the country.
Right. And here in America, again, I'm doing this just to pose positioning, this contrast and comparison, because putting it into in our language, Donald Trump had a massive sweep in
Hmm.
last year's election as a direct result of the wokeism, the
Yes.
leftist, the very liberal
Yes.
ideology that has become so pervasive in our country. And it's one thing for that to be here in America. We voted against it. We don't like it. But I would think that's very dangerous to have those kind of people over a very large and influential budget that is getting people elected and pushing their values when you're the only democratic country surrounded by people on their charter is to annihilate you. So I would think it's kind of like a child playing with matches to have that kind of ideology so pervasive there in Israel. So on May 4th, there is a very big election. This is for Jews all across the world. If I was a Jew, I would so be aware of this. But it is interesting. Most Jews don't understand. But every single Jew listening to this, coming in where this is going, there's a very large Jewish population who is listening. You have a very critical vote come May 4th. What are your instructions to them?
Excellent. So you are correct. The Jewish population of America is invited to enter into this vote. And as a result of the pendulum swinging so far towards the left, there have been a proliferation of many new parties that have been popping up in this election. There are 22 different parties. Amazingly, there was only 13 5 years ago in the last vote. The parties have nearly doubled. Now, you might think, well, I've got a very large choice. How am I supposed to choose? Actually, the choice is very easy. Of the parties who are conservative, leaning right, Israel365 Action is the party of action. We didn't just choose that name randomly. It's actually who we are. And I want to take one simple example, and you alluded to it in your question, the example of security.
Right.
In the left wing, liberal leaning communities, what is referred to as the West Bank, of course, we who live here, I'm actually speaking to you from Judea. I'm a resident of Judea and Samaria. We who live in Judea and Samaria, part of the 500,000 Jewish people that now make up these communities, we would never give this away. And we certainly would never allow a Palestinian state to be founded here. Mark Rubio, if I can quote one of your American leaders of the administration, he put it best. Around 5 weeks ago, Mark Rubio was quoted as saying, a Palestinian state, we tried that already. It was called Gaza. And look what
Mm,
a mess they made of that.
right.
And so people are still deluding themselves that a Palestinian state could be created here in
A
Judea and
two-state
Samaria.
solution is what we call it here in
A
America.
two-state delusion is more like it. We will never give away Judea and Samaria. It would be a perilous, dangerous
But that
mistake
sounds
if we
so
did.
mean, Rabbi. What do you mean? Why not?
And here is why it's actually so caring. Because if there would be sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, do you know who would benefit? Obviously, the Jewish communities who live here. But do you know who would be the number two people that would benefit from Jewish sovereignty over Judea and Samaria? The Arabs
Arabs.
who are living here.
Yeah.
Because today, 2025, if you take a look at the nearly 10 million civilian population of the state of Israel, 20% are Arabs.
Mm.
They are Christian Arabs, they are Muslim Arabs.
Yes.
20% are Arabs. And if you would ask any of them, would you like to live in Lebanon today? Would you like to live in Syria? How about Iraq? How about the list goes on, and you will always have the same answer. We know where we are safer, more protected, and have
Yes.
better rights than anywhere else in the Middle East. And those are the
Right.
Arabs living in Israel.
And even
Sovereignty would benefit them.
and even the Palestinian authorities will probably agree with you because they have not had an election in almost 20 years because they know if given the opportunity, unfortunately, the people have already said and have made it very clear they will vote for Hamas. At the time,
Correct.
Ishmael, he has since been he's no longer here.
Eliminated.
Yes, in the land of the living, but nonetheless, even the Palestinian authorities would agree with you that if the Palestinian people were given their own state and allowed to vote, they will vote in Hamas leadership. And we see how that has worked out in Gaza right now. So I
Correct.
understand that. In the last few moments, if you don't mind, I was looking at one of the flyers I picked up about Israel365 Action.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very beginning, you have 3 bullet points that makes up your vision. One is, as we've already discussed, ushering in this new courageous leadership.
Mm-hmm.
No more wokeism. Number 2, strengthening Judea and Samaria. It's West Bank of what? Jordan? No,
Exactly.
it's not the West Bank. It is, again, a delusion. It is actually Judea and Samaria. But the third one kind of piqued my interest because, of course, I'm a Christian. And you said in this flyer, it says building strong alliances. Faith-based Christians are Israel's greatest allies, and we must invest in these relationships to ensure the next generation of American Christians remain steadfastly committed to Israel's cause. And that piqued my interest, one, because I believe there's a tremendous amount of truth. I am a
Mm-hmm.
Christian. I have a supernatural affinity
Mm-hmm.
towards those things related to Israel
Right.
specifically.
Okay.
But what I've noticed, especially since 2019, is this radicalization of Christians here in America. I don't even need to mention any of the names of very
Mm-hmm.
popular people, but I'm seeing it from top down, bottom up. Is this kind of what I am calling a radicalization of Christians? I'm gonna punt that over to you.
Thank you. So you're bringing up 2 points. I'll address your first point first. We believe that the greatest allies to the Jewish people today in America are the Christian community and faith-based allies. This is a very overlooked point, and it's as overlooked as it is important. I want to give you an anecdote. The first member of state that visited President Trump after he was elected into office
Yes.
was, of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu. This in itself speaks volumes for the close and unbreakable bond Israel has with America. There was one group of people, only one, that Prime Minister Netanyahu met with before his meeting with President Trump. Who was that? If you think about it, you'll go through the list of all of the different Jewish organizations, all of the various community leadership, and they will all be the wrong answer. There was one group that he met with, and that was the Evangelical Christian Community of America.
Yes.
15 different Christian leaders coming from the evangelical community were the people that Netanyahu met with prior to his meeting with President Trump. And this is a sea change in terms of who the let me correct that, who the strongest and newest wave of support for Israel is today in 2025. It's Christian faith-based partners. And that's a very powerful statement. Of course, that doesn't mean that we don't have partners and
Of
supporters
course.
within the Jewish community, and we absolutely do, and we know that. But I think it's very telling that that's who the Prime Minister met with before his meeting with President
Yes.
Trump.
And what about, and in our last couple of minutes, what about the radicalization
Ah,
that, I mean, it's very real, it's very palpable. You
yes.
cannot help but to see it.
So we are very familiar with the woke left and the anti-Semitism that's been coming out from there. And um, social commentators, Karis Ray, for example, among others, have been documenting and starting to notice how there's now what we're calling a woke right. And what that means is that people from within both the Christian radical community, the radical extreme right community, are starting to have these same tropes of anti-Semitism, and sometimes quite vulgar and rabid anti-Semitism, as they are trying to put the woes of America onto the scapegoating of the community that we always know is the community that scapegoated the Jewish community. And this is a real danger. It's a real worry, and it's something that has to be named, something that has to be looked out for, and as a result, carefully guarded against.
Well, I am very appreciative that it was here in writing in black and white that you recognize the importance of the relationship, but also recognize that this is not by osmosis. There is an investment that has to be made. And so again, May 4th is the last day. So voting is open right now to determine the
Correct.
leadership for the World Zionist Congress. So between now and May 4th, every Jew in America, and even if they don't, if you're a Jew and you're hearing this, pick up the phone, text, call, email your friends and family who are also Jewish, and encourage them to go to, what is the website?
Very simply, Israel365 Action. Those are the numbers 365. Israel365action.com. And there you'll be taken straight away to the voting form. All you have to do is put in your information and follow the instructions. Spend 5 minutes for Israel. If you care about the future of the Jewish people in Israel, and you care about the vision of a strong, safe, and sovereign Judea and Samaria, go to Israel365action.com and vote. Slate number 7.
Rabbi Mark Fishman, campaign manager for Israel365 Action. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me.
Kathy, this was an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely. Blessings.